Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the origins of one of history's absolute heavyweights, the Ottoman Empire. For literally 6 centuries, this superpower dominated across 3 continents. We're talking the Balkans, the Caucasus, Anatolia, the Middle East, and North Africa, the whole shebang. But before the grand palaces and the massive global conquests, the Ottomans actually started out as just a tiny, unassuming band of nomadic refugees. So how on earth do you go from wandering the frontier to ruling the world? Well, we're going to unpack the exact anatomy of that rise today, and we'll see why this ancient masterclass in adaptability is still incredibly relevant to how power is built even now.
I mean, it really is the ultimate historical puzzle, right? How exactly did a small band of displaced refugees manage to outlast the terrifying might of the Mongols, completely dismantle the ancient Byzantine Empire, and build a global superpower? We're looking way past the basic dates and names today. We want to get at the real why and how of this era. What were the specific conditions that literally demanded this empire's existence in a world of absolute chaos? And how did these frontier warriors adapt to actually pull it off? So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the Anatolian power vacuum. Second, Ertugrul and the Kayyi. Third, the Ai Brotherhood advantage. Fourth, Gaza, myth versus reality. And finally, the birth of an empire. Section 1, the Anatolian power vacuum. Chaos and the shatter zone. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the Ottomans, you have to completely grasp the absolute chaos of the world they stepped into. Late 13th century Anatolia was what historians call a geopolitical shatter zone. It was this highly fragmented, violently contested borderland where central authority had just evaporated. Basically, 3 catastrophic events created this massive power vacuum. First, in 1204, the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople, which permanently crippled the Byzantine Empire. Then, in 1243, at the Battle of Kosada, the Mongol Ilkhanate totally crushed the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, wiping out central Islamic authority in Anatolia. And finally, the Mongol sack of Baghdad in 1258 pushed these huge waves of displaced Turkic nomads westward, right into this very region. So the old empires were dying, leaving this vast, chaotic void. People were desperate for safety, and that void practically demanded a new authority to step up. You can kind of think of this power vacuum like a collapsed monopoly, where dozens of nimble regional startups, which were known as beyliks, suddenly spring up to seize market share. The Ottomans were basically just one of these competing startups. You had the Karamanid in central Anatolia, and they were sort of the legacy brand. They held the most prestige as the heirs to the Seljuks. Then you had the Aydinids, who dominated the seas with this formidable raiding fleet. But the Ottomans had the ultimate strategic advantage. Situated right up in the Bithynia frontier, they were directly on the border of the crumbling Byzantine Empire. So while the other beyliks were exhausting all their resources fighting fellow Muslims for territory, the agile Ottomans could just channel the energy of their nomadic warriors outward. They easily expanded against those fractured Christian territories. It was a huge geographic upper hand. Section 2, Ertugrul and the Kayyi. Nomads on the frontier. This brings us to the actual people who stepped into this void. The Kayyi tribe, led by the semi-legendary figure Ertugrul. Displaced by those terrifying Mongol incursions we mentioned earlier, Ertugrul and his followers sought asylum with the fading Seljuks. The Seljuks ended up granting them land near the town of Sukt to act as a frontier buffer against the Byzantines. But the really crucial point here is that this group wasn't some exclusive, closed-off bloodline. Scholars today recognize the early Ottomans under Ertugrul and his son Osman as a political tribe. In the brutal, unforgiving reality of the frontier, survival meant inclusivity. They happily assimilated diverse refugees, wandering mystics, and get this, even renegade Byzantine aristocrats, like the family of Kozai Mihal, who had Greek Christian origins. Their pragmatic genius was this incredible capacity to absorb anyone who shared their political and economic interests. Simply put, they didn't care about your past. They cared about your utility. Section 3, the Ai Brotherhood advantage, the societal glue. Now, military might alone does not build a 600-year empire. You need administration, you need a functioning economy. Enter the socio-economic secret weapon of the early Ottomans, the Ai Brotherhood. The Ahis were these urban-based fraternal guilds made up of artisans, merchants, and craftsmen, and they were bound together by this concept called futuzvet. Basically, futuzvet was a strict chivalric ethical code in medieval Anatolia that demanded generosity, courage, loyalty, and, most importantly, fair trade and economic discipline. It served as a moral compass in a totally lawless land. In a region where the central state had just completely collapsed, you could imagine the Ahi Brotherhood as this unique mix of a local government, a trade union, and a localized defense force. They did it all. They regulated trade, pricing, and craft quality. They organized and mobilized urban militias to defend cities against Mongol raiders. They set up hospices to provide social welfare and feed travelers. Above all, they provided the critical institutional backbone that the nomadic Ottoman fighters really lacked. They bridged the gap between these fierce warriors on horseback and the settled urbanites you actually need to run a functioning society. And the early Ottomans knew exactly how to leverage this network. There was this highly influential Sufi scholar and Aki Brotherhood leader named Sheikh Edebali. Well, Osman I, the founder of the Ottoman dynasty, actually married Edebali's daughter. This wasn't just a romance, it was a profound political masterstroke. It formally fused the raw military power of the Ottoman sword with the vast, deeply organized societal and economic networks of the Ahis. It was literally the perfect merger. Section 4, Ghazi, Myth versus Reality, the ideological engine. So, what was the actual ideology driving these warriors to expand in the first place? To answer that, we really need to look at the concept of Ghazi, which roughly translates to raiding or holy war. For decades, history books loved to portray the early Ottomans purely as zealous holy warriors. But is that actually the whole story? Well, for a long time, historians subscribed to Paul Wittek's famous 1930s Ghazi thesis, which argued that the Ottomans were strictly defined by an uncompromising ideology of Islamic holy war against non-believers. But today, a totally new consensus has formed. Modern historians point out that the Ottomans were actually incredibly pragmatic. Their frontier raiding was fluid, economically driven, and honestly, far from religiously rigid. Like we touched on earlier, they happily incorporated Christian allies into their ranks, and they definitely fought against rival Muslim beyliks when it suited their strategic goals. So yes, Ghazi was a powerful motivating framework, but it was highly flexible. To see how this early era was remembered later on, consider this famous advice supposedly given by Sheikh Edebali to Osman to guide his new rule. Wrath is for us, for you calmness. Unfairness ours, justice yours. It's this beautiful, poetic piece of advice that perfectly frames the Ottoman state's moral foundation. It urges the new ruler to prioritize justice, patience, and the welfare of the people above absolutely everything else. It sounds amazing, right? But we have to stop and ask a critical question here. Did he actually stand there and say this to Osman? The historical reality is that we have practically zero written records from the actual time of Osman. Historians call this retrospective mythology. These quotes, along with the famous stories of Osman having prophetic dreams about a giant world-spanning tree, were actually written down over 150 years later. By then, the Ottomans had essentially created a retroactive PR department to legitimize their massive ruling dynasty to the rest of the world. So, while the core alliance with the Ahis was very real, the dramatic, cinematic speeches, those were powerful, state-sponsored propaganda crafted much later. Section 5, Birth of an Empire, from tribe to state. Let's move on and see how this all builds into an actual institutionalized state. We're shifting from the era of Osman, the frontier warlord, to his son, Orhan, who is really the true architect of the empire. And if there's one year that marks the definitive turning point from a nimble raiding band to a permanent global heavyweight, it's 1326. In 1326, after a grueling siege that lasted nearly a decade, Orhan's forces captured the magnificent Byzantine city of Bursa. Now, this wasn't just another dusty frontier fort. Bursa became their first real capital. It was a prosperous, major hub on the Silk Road. By taking it, the Ottomans effectively ended Byzantine control in northwestern Anatolia. But more importantly, Bursa provided immense economic wealth. The Ottomans used all that Silk Road cash to finance grand mosques, palaces, and public buildings that blended Byzantine and Islamic styles. They were proudly broadcasting their new permanence and prestige to the world. Orhan didn't just conquer, he institutionalized. He took some very specific steps. First, he made Bursa a true, functioning capital. Second, he stopped relying solely on irregular nomadic cavalry that only fought for seasonal plunder. Instead, he established a standing army, including the Yaya infantry, who were paid directly by the state and actually utilized those Ahi disciplinary codes. Third, he implemented centralized taxation and administration. He pulled the society away from tribal looseness right into a structured bureaucracy. These calculated steps permanently locked in their power.
So, what does this all mean? We're left with a massive question to ponder. Was the rise of the Ottoman Empire a matter of inevitable destiny, driven by divine holy war, as their later historians claimed? Or was it, in reality, an absolute masterclass in exploiting a chaotic, shattered frontier? The evidence clearly shows us a pragmatic, brilliant group of people who simply utilized their geography, assimilated diverse talents regardless of background, and allied with vital socioeconomic networks to turn a nomadic tribe into a 6th century superpower. It's a powerful reminder that agility, open assimilation, and strong social structures will always win out over rigid borders and decaying monopolies. Keep digging into this fascinating history, and we'll see you in the next explainer.